Hello and welcome to the last of the Zwift Classics. It is the Crit City Slam and Super League Triathlon once again involved. We have been getting better and better at Zwift racing. We've entered the world of esports. We're making a bit of a splash too, and it is fantastic to see. And we've got a fantastic lineup as well for this, the Crit City Slam. In about half an hour's time. Right now, though, I'm going to wake up and welcome Chris McCormack, two-time Hawaii Ironman world champion, two-time world triathlete champion, but 0 times Zwift racer. Macca, how are you, mate?
I'm tired. This is getting harder and harder waking up this time of morning. I'm still in my pajamas. I was running a little bit late this morning. I threw a hat on, but this is what I sleep in. It's starting to get a little bit chilly here in Sydney. I was able to squeeze a cup of tea in, but no, it's good to be back on. I'm enjoying making these calls with you, getting that text message from you in the morning to wake up, and here we are, 30 minutes out from another race.
Yeah, I send you a text message and then you say, "Oh, is that today?" And I'm like, "Yes, that's today." That's what happens every time, isn't it?
Yeah. And have you got the notes?
Yeah, that's right. And then you say, "Can you send them to me?" Well, I'll tell you, this race is called the Crit City Slam. It's again a little bit different. It's a scratch race like we had the last time around in the Watopia Cup, but couldn't be more different apart from that. 15 laps of a 1.9 kilometre course, and the elevation per lap is only 26 feet. And it does add up, but it's only an 8-metre elevation per lap. So it's fast, it's pretty flat. There's some really tight technical sections. There's some dead turns. Obviously, it's a little bit different in terms of you don't have to really slow down, but you get to see where your competition is. And maybe, Macca, do you think that we've seen how hard it is to cross a gap in Zwift as opposed to in the real world? Maybe being able to see where your opponents are and who to chase down might make it a little bit easier.
Well, that was the thing when we looked at the schedule of events we're going to be calling over a few weeks ago, and I saw this crit one. I actually thought this was going to be raced a little bit like a crit, but understanding it now a little bit more, and the fact that we don't get to brake coming into those corners, so there's not really a big revving of the engine as you come in and out of corners that splits crits up. And the only real difference is these dead turns and these corners allowing the athletes to see where their competitors are, especially those competitors have gone up the road. And having watched the women's event the other day, the Watopia Cup, and having watched a lot of the races we've been doing, once that break goes away, it tends to disappear. On a crit course like this, the groups behind are going to be able to see where that group is if they're close enough. So it's going to be the onus is on that group to get far enough away that they can't be seen, because that tends to win these Zwift racing. But it'll be interesting to see if that crit does allow those groups to come back and forwards together, which tends to happen in real crit racing in the real world.
Yeah, Zwift has put in, though, a little power section that comes across a brick section with about a 4% gradient. We see in this what is an event-only course. You can't really ride this unless you're in an event in Zwift that constantly attacks every lap on this one little section, because that requires that wattage put down and try and break up the peloton. So we'll see if that actually happens. And in men's racing versus the women's racing, we see a lot more attacks, a lot more aggressive racing. And our squad, Macca, once again, we have delivered a really quality Super League Triathlon squad. We have 2 guys coming back for their 3rd race already. That is Alistair Brownlee. We know his credentials. Vincent Lewis, of course, is the world champion. He's back once again. Hayden Wild is back for his 2nd race. Jonas Schomburg, who's one of Super League's rising stars, and Tyler Mislachuk, who won the Tokyo Test event and could easily medal in Tokyo whenever it is that we end up having the Olympics. How about that for a squad? How about that for a lineup?
Amazing lineup. I think I'm excited again to see Alistair and Vincent both race again, because Alistair's learning curve has been straight up in this. Where we saw his last event where he really, really worked very well with Vincent Lewis, and I just think he's really learning how this Zwift racing is going. He's such a competitive athlete. We know that in his Palomares, what he's done in his career. But I just know I could just picture Alistair sitting at home in his pain cave, watching what's going on, understanding where everybody's is, and trying to be as close to the front as possible. Vincent's, clever enough to stay as close to Alistair as possible. With Tyler, with Hayden Wild, who are more, I don't know what the word is, they're more looser type of races. It's staying close to that team element within this group that's going to be key to seeing all of our team do very, very well in this race.
Yeah, I mean, each of these guys has a fair amount. We actually don't know about Jonas's Zwift racing expertise. We're going to talk to him a little bit later on in the show. We're going to talk to Hayden as well to find out exactly what he's been doing since his last race, where he found it going a little bit tough on the London Loop, which seems like such a long time ago. Maybe it's because every third day we have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. But it seems like a long time ago to me. We'll talk to Hayden in a second. But before we do that, let's quickly recap what happened last time in the Watopia Cup. If you didn't catch that, we had a fantastic group of women involved in that one. It was funny because a lot of them were racing, well, almost all of them were racing on mountain bikes because it was almost solely a dirt circuit, the jungle circuit on Zwift. And Sophie Colwell absolutely slayed it. She ended up in 6th position, but for her, I mean, she's a power athlete, but positioning was key and staying on that front group when it split up early. That's what really set up the race for her.
Well, we talked about it going into that race, that tarmac section before the gravel section, and she was that group went up the road very, very early. All except Sophie and the Super League athletes got caught out in that break. Sophie was right in the mix once they got onto the dirt. She's such a power athlete. She's so used to swimming off the front in triathlon races and going for broke. We saw that in the Jersey event she did a few years ago when she was in the blue jersey. She was on the front all day, and we saw that in the Zwift racing. She was right up in that front few women that were driving that front group to stay away. She was not working against the teammates to some degree, but she saw the opportunity to keep that break away, and that's exactly what happened. And it came down to that bunch sprint, and she was magnificent. I was really, really excited to see her racing. She really took it seriously. We spoke to her before that event. She had a boyfriend in the pain cave with her, egging her along, making sure she knew where she was going. And the proof was in the pudding. When you prepare for something like that and you've got the talent that Soph has, you can be right in the mix with the best cyclists in the world.
It's a good point you make, actually, because and Ilaria Zane did it as well in the first race. She had some technical issues in this one, so she ended up finishing 96, but she finished, I think, 26th, which was the best of the Super League athletes in the Trofeo Bologna race, which was 8 or 9 days ago. And athletes are used to preparing for their races in a set way. They always, and you know this better than me, but they always seem to have a certain set of preparations that they do coming into this. The setup or the preparation for a Zwift race is a lot more wide-ranging in terms of you have to have your bike and your trainer set up and perfectly calibrated. You have to have the right screen. You have to have the fans to make sure you stay cool, and you have to have it in a good place with decent Wi-Fi, and you have to have someone there you have to have ridden the course before so you know what's going to happen. You have to have ridden Zwift races before so you know how to use the power-ups. There's a whole different set of preparations for this, and we've seen the gap in the athletes that have done that and done their homework and the athletes that have just gone, I just need watts.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think a lot of athletes who haven't done Zwift before, and I'm one of those athletes, we used to get on those indoor trainers and you go through this roller coaster ride of not emotions, but of power during a workout. But that doesn't work in a race. Suddenly, when you're in a race and you actually have to deliver against other competitors, that roller coaster ride has to be monitored and controlled. Putting out power at the right time is critical. Going with a break is critical, and that's what we're seeing. And Soph did that better than the other women, without question. She had a boyfriend there yelling out where she was. She knew when the break went up the road and she went with it. She made that break at the critical time on that tarmac section, got onto that dirt where you needed to put out more watts to stay strong, delivered those strong watts. And it was just a perfectly prepared and executed race for her. And we're talking about the men's race. That's what I was saying with Alistair. Alistair went through that learning curve in that London event, came back and has just refined and refined and refined. And you're seeing that. And that's where I'm hoping Hayden this weekend is able to take what he learned in that first race and realise what needs to happen in order to do well in this style of racing. Because just punching out big watts at a period of time during an event like this is not going to deliver you the result. You have to put out those watts when they matter and go with the breaks, because we've seen that the breaks win these races. If you're not in it, you're out of it.
That's right. Sophie Caldwell finished up 6th overall. She finished in a 28.05. She pushed 4.9 watts a kilogram across that entire time to get to that. Angelica Olmo was 47th, Rachel Flammer 57th, and Lisa Perther at 64th. All about a minute back on Sophie and about 45 seconds between them. And then Ilaria Zane, as I said, had some technical issues, ended up finishing in 96th. And to put that into perspective, like, I'm just a normal person. So I went and did the Watopia Cup yesterday, exactly the same course, exactly the same amount of kilometres. And Sophie did it in 28 minutes. I did it in 42 minutes and 14 seconds, and I spent about an hour on the floor afterwards trying to cough up a lung. Like, it was so horrible. It is so hard. And when you see these athletes, they always are posting their training peaks screenshots afterwards, and they're going, these Zwift races are delivering all-time 5-second power, all-time 20-second power, all-time 1-minute power. Like, they are pushing themselves so hard, and I guess that's something to do with the feedback that you have on the screen, and you can see exactly what you're doing, and they're putting themselves as deep in the pain as I've ever seen them.
You see that in a real race, in the real world. You see the face, you see everything. But when you're looking at an icon, it's just an icon. But if you could show what was happening in that pain cave, and you see that real effort, and you're feeling it when you're doing that session on your own, it's amazing.
Yeah, when we jump on Instagram Live, which we will do at the end of this race, and talk to some of our athletes, you can see how hammered that they actually are. My daughter came out about 20 minutes after I finished, and she just said, "Dad, did somebody hurt you? Are you all right? You were making all sorts of funny noises." And I was like, I'm fine, everything's fine. Anyway, let's talk right now, Macca, to a man that's much fitter than me, and he's much fitter than you now, maybe not in your heyday, but that was a long, long time ago. Hayden Wild is about to join us. And here he is, the great man, wearing the green jersey. Looks like the Incredible Hulk. Doesn't look like he's put on too much weight since isolation began. Hayden, are you ready to go again? We had you in the London Loop. It looked pretty tough out there, and now we're going to do it all again.
Yeah, no, looking forward to it. It was a bit of a mare last week. Got dropped on the hill where I'm normally most strongest on, but it was for my first pro race, and it was kind of really one of my first ever Zwift races. So had a lot to learn there, and I've been doing a lot more, and been really enjoying it.
Mate, you just coughed. You can't do that in this day and age. You're not going to cough anymore. How are you, mate? And it's very, very early in the morning. A lot earlier here in Sydney than it is in New Zealand. But what did you learn in that race in London that you're going to apply this week? Because this is a crit, but after watching that London event, what's the takeaways that we'll see something different out of you this week?
Yeah, I guess the takeaways is it's I'll kind of be in the exact same box because actually today we had yesterday on Saturday we had a Anzac race which is going to be pretty tough. So it's a Tri-New Zealand race, so it's Australia versus New Zealand. So I'm actually just coming off a race from yesterday, going into another race today. So the legs are definitely warmed up and ready to go. Excuse me. But yeah, looking forward to it. I think things that to take away would definitely be if you don't hold anything above 5.5 watts per kg, you're pretty much out the back.
You don't have a fever, mate, do you? No fevers, no. You're a drop for fever. You're going to be fine, are you? You got a big race on in half.
I just had some porridge, mate, and it's stuck in the back of my throat.
I actually moved backwards from the screen when you coughed. I was just like, oh, no, mate. Don't want to know about that. Now tell me, New Zealand has been pretty hectic over there. You guys have closed your borders in and out, so people are stranded there. I mean, what's the vibe there? Because when you look at all the greater numbers of how this whole thing's playing out, New Zealand seems to be on top of it. We're very happy to take your Prime Minister and swap for our one because he's a battler. But, how is the vibe there? Can you get out on the bike? And saying that, how much time have you been spending on Zwift because of this?
Yeah, I guess it's limited so I haven't swum pretty much since the Bar World Cup. So it's pretty much 44 days plus counting. I've been out of the pool, which is quite tough. But I've been on a pretty strict gym plan and kind of workout plan from my physio and my coach, which has been awesome. But there's I lost a lot of feel of the water, which is which was going to happen. But I kind of know everyone's in the same box, so I'm not really too phased about it. With the kind of biking side, I'm pretty much just been riding on Zwift because I've only got one CO2 canister left and one tube left, so if I get a puncture, I'm kind of in no man's land, and we'll kind of have to try and get someone to come pick me up about 30 minutes out of town. So yeah, I've pretty much since Mooloolaba, I've been based in a little place called the Rotomars, which is kind of pretty much what we call the Wop Wops, which is up in the forest. So yeah, it's been really nice, just kind of get out into the nature. So I've just been doing some nice runs through the bushes and all sorts. So yeah, at this point, it's real nice just to kind of, I'm normally overseas, so it's actually quite nice to stay home for a little bit and do some family time and just take a break from it all, really. It's actually quite nice. And
do something with that hair, obviously.
Well, that's what you do when you're in the Wop Wops, mate, is just embrace it. grow a beard, get a bushy.
your beard's going great, mate. You're really doing well with it.
Thanks,
well done.
Mate, thanks. I've been growing it since Malta last year.
In the structure, a question I want for you, Hayes, is in the structure of things with everything that's going on, and obviously this was an Olympic year. It's been moved to 2021. What does it look like now without you say you haven't swum for 44 days? How do you use these races? Are they plonked into a program, or you just jump aboard and think I may as well do something because I'm bored? Is there still a training plan that you're following, a solid structure, and how much has that changed since with everything that's gone down?
Yeah, I guess, there's still, for me, there's a good solid structure. I'm taking it a lot easier than I would probably expect if coming into an Olympic year, but we're using this time as a good kind of block, as just a good block, towards kind of a good endurance base, building up a good base on the bike again and getting some good mileage in the run. So it's been really nice kind of just getting a real good kind of, base, so to say, because I'm usually racing every third or fourth week to try and get, some good points, but and never really kind of get a good opportunity to get a good base. So now, I get a good, 8 months at least of a good base. So it's kind of takes me back to when I was doing exterior multisport. I'd literally do 4 or 5 races a year and then spend 8-9 months training. So for me, mentally, I'm quite used to it. So it's not much change.
And now, obviously, you get to completely smash yourself over the next hour or so.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, try and hold on for dear life. See if I can break a couple more FTP results over the 20 minutes, and we'll see what happens.
All right, I think we're going to leave you there, mate.
Yeah.
I think we'll leave you there. We don't want to take up too much of your time because, of course, you've got to race in about 15 minutes. I hope you had that double shot coffee that you talked about missing out on last time, and that was the reason why you missed the start. So are you fully caffeinated? Yes,
I've got my little barista corner ready to go. I bought myself a cheeky espresso machine and actually got my barista certificate as well. So I'm a full barista as well. So man makes a good long black and a good latte.
All right, I've been using your time wisely. Well done, mate. You're a man of many talents. I'll never take a coffee from you, but it's good to know that you can make one for yourself. All right. Thanks, Haydos. Good luck, mate.
Rip it up.
All right, there we go. Hayden Wild getting ready, getting caffeinated and ready to go on this one. He certainly looks in good spirits, Macca, and why wouldn't he be? He's, as he said, he's pretty used to this kind of thing. He's out in the back of wherever he is in the middle of nowhere and seems to be enjoying life considering the situation that we're all in.
He's just one positive guy, right? Isn't he? He's really an athlete. I just enjoy, not just having on the show, just enjoy being around. He's just always so positive, so upbeat. It's like he's got into triathlon. He's doing what he loves. He's delivering it on the biggest stage in the world. He's one of the favourites to do successful at an Olympic Games, and it's just all come at him so quickly. And I just feel privileged to be not on the journey with him, but to have seen the start of Hayden Wild, because I think he's an athlete that's going to do amazing things in his career, and he has the right mindset and the right attitude just to be a real star of the sport.
Just quickly, while you're talking about that, of that moment when he ran down Mario Mola for 6th and 7th in Jersey 2 years ago, that was one of my favourite moments of Super League so far. And not to reminisce because we're just nearly at race time, but how good was that?
Well, that's when he came on the scene, right? He just went bang to the world. Mario Mola had just been crowned the world champion the week prior, and here he is taking on the world champion his first attempt at racing him, and beats him in a bunch sprint and all in a run sprint. And then you see him outkick, Johnny Brownlee. You've seen him pick up race wins in Super League. He just races from the heart, and those are the dangerous athletes. They love what they do. They've got the talent to deliver, and when they're in the right spot, they take the chance. And most of the time, winning these big races or winning any race is about taking a chance and execute. Taking a chance when it matters, because most of the time you don't know if it's going to be the right move, but you got to have the courage to do that. And he just seems to make a move, and it tends to pay off all the time for him.
Speaking of taking a chance, we're going to talk to Jonas Schomburg in just a second. He took his chance at the Tokyo Test event and went right off the front, as he tends to do quite a bit. and he didn't win that race. But what he did do was seal his spot in his national team for the Olympics, and that's a big boost for him. And he's another guy who's really seen Super League deliver him to the world, or really step his game up, because he was a guy that came to you asking for a spot and now demands a spot in Super League, and his growth is another one that you've had a big hand in.
Well, I used to race with his father. That's how old I am. And he came to our first ever Jersey event and asked for a start. He said, "Look, please give me a start." He flew across on his own dime with his dad, and we just couldn't do it. And he opted to come to one of the qualifying races, landed a spot in Super League, and it's gone from strength to strength. And now the first German male pick for the Olympic squad. I thought his coming of age party really was Singapore. And then he went on to do that Tokyo event, Singapore Super League race. He was just magnificent. But then he did that Tokyo test event where he was just amazing. He outkicked, Jake Birtwistle. He was right behind Henry Schumann. It was just an amazing day. And to see his progress and to see, because at times I feel Jonas has so much ability and just talks himself out of things. But when he's like a snowball, when he gets the momentum of good race results and he feels like he's got a rhythm of training, he does amazing things. And I think the more racing he can do, Jonas Schomburg, the stronger and better athlete he's going to be. And I just think he's going to grow into his body, grow into his talent. And he reminds me of a young Jan Frodeno. And that's a big call. Jan Frodeno went on to win Olympics and probably the greatest triathlete to ever compete. But he has the same body structure, the same nervous energy as a young Jan Frodeno. And he just sort of grew into himself and suddenly became a superstar. And Jonas has all the ability to be a Jan Frodeno, if he has the confidence of Jan Frodeno.
Well, there you go. Maybe Tokyo 2021 can be another German win like it was Jan's coming of age in 2008. We'll find out. In fact, let's talk to the great man right now. Jonas Schomburg is on the line. Welcome, mate. You're about to make wouldn't be your debut in Zwift racing. You've done a couple, but certainly you're just starting your Zwift journey. How are you feeling? Are you ready for this?
Yeah, I'm excited to finally do a race. It's on esports. Actually, I have done a couple of races, but I'm looking forward. I heard it's brutal, it's hard, but I'm so excited to give it a go and go all out.
Mate, you have got the best hair I've seen on anyone we've spoken to in the last couple of weeks. It looks amazing. It's definitely not helmet hair.
Hey. What about me?
He's actually got some hair. Right? No, but
It was my brother who cut my hair with a scissor. It was his first cut, and it took an hour though.
Oh, it looks amazing. It's perfect. It's a perfect racing cut.
The reason it looks good is because we just spoken to Hayden, and Hayden looks like an unmade bed. That's why.
Hayden was like that.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. It was a total disaster. Now you're part of a pretty solid squad here, Jonas. Hayden, Tyler Misselchuk, Vincent, and Ali Brownlee, and obviously you're the biggest name amongst all of those, so they'll be looking to you to lead them. But have you been talking with the other boys prior to the race about, how you attack it? Because some of these guys have already done one or two races.
Oh, sure. We're talking to each other so they can give me advice. Martin told me some tips for the races, and I think it's different than the normal races. And it's an advantage that I was watching already some races online, and I think that could be another factor that helped me.
Okay, what were those tips, Jonas? I want to know. What were those tips? Because Will tried his first race at Zwift, or the course we did the other day, the women's course, and got blown out the back door. So I want to know what the advice was that Martin's given you, and Alistair and these athletes are giving you. What have they told you to do?
Let's say it's completely different than racing. It's about positioning before the split is happening, and it's when you got dropped, there's no chance to get back. So and the gap is just growing. For me, it's like I've tried a couple of races on Zwift, and it's true, just to stay in front and stay at the front. So it's from the gun all out, and it's also very difficult to do breakaway. So that's maybe I don't like that too much, but we will see. Maybe I have a chance to do that.
Yeah, we were just talking actually before you came on about you're famous at the moment for the breakaways, like we mentioned at the Tokyo Test event. That does not work here. If you're by yourself, or even if you're with like 3 or 4 others who are working together, you're going to get swallowed up by the group, especially if it's on the flat. And this Crit City circuit is fairly flat. So, yeah, you're right. It's just about what we've seen is that you've got to control the race and have fun and not get dropped, and then you'll end up with a group at the end. So don't just burn all your matches breaking away, mate. I know you want to.
Yeah, I know.
So we've got about 15, 20 minutes before this one. How have you prepared for this race? I mean, you've been watching. I mean, it's a little different to normal, or some of the athletes are treating it like a normal race. They get up on race day and do the normal things that they do, but then just do it on Zwift. Or have you done things a little bit differently?
Actually, it was like 3 weeks ago. I got the information I can race. Did my program and I changed a bit. I did more like sprint training, power max for the sprint on the bike. So I did some adjustments, and yeah, that's probably, we will see if it works. But I feel like the training was going really well here in Germany. I did all my sessions on my own, but I can compare to last year, and I think I'm got a bit stronger on the bike, especially on the sprint, and that should be advantage for the race.
Do you have a big sprint in you? Are you much of a bunch sprinter? I know you're a great power rider, but have you got a bunch sprint?
I used to do cycling races when I was younger, so my sprint wasn't the best, but I think it's quite hard, and when it's quite good enough for the triathletes. I should say that.
Perfect.
Yeah, sometimes in Zwift racing, when suddenly you see them pick up the 13 or 14 watts a kilo, it leaves the triathletes behind. So you'll need all of those watts across the course of the next hour or two. Jonas, go and finish your warm up. Enjoy this race. Try not to die out there, mate. It's what happens to the best of us, including me. So best of luck with that, mate, and just beat Ali for me, okay? Can you do that?
I will try.
Okay, good. That's what I like to hear. All right, there's Jonas Schomburg. Thanks very much, mate. Enjoy the race, and good luck over there in Germany.
Thanks.
Cheers, Jonas.
All right, Jonas Schomburg there, as we said, one of the rising stars of Super League. And I don't know, he kind of knows what he's in for, but I don't know if he's going to really realise how tough these things can be until it starts off. That first 3 or 4 minutes, it's always brutal, isn't it?
Well, he's talking to Martin van Riel, who showed that he knows how to do this in that opening race that we called. Was magnificent at it, and fundamentally, I guess what they're saying is everybody's trying to put themselves in a good position. So what makes this so tough is from the beginning, as we talked about, in many of these shows, that launching out of the pen with high power to make sure you don't get dropped is key. But staying up the front with everybody thinking that, forces such a heavy pace early that a lot of people find that they miss the break just by not putting down the power at the right time. So it's as much, as I said earlier, about putting down the power when it matters, because everyone's looking at staying near the front. And if you miss that just by dropping off a little bit and not knowing where you are in the group, because you've got to pay attention to the screen, you get caught out. So Martin showed that he didn't do that. That hasn't been caught out before. Alistair's very much improved, so is Vincent Lewis. So we've got a great team this week, especially in those two. And I think if Jonas can stay close to Ali and Vincent, then we can see him unleash that big bike sprint.
All right, well, that'll wrap us up. We're just about at race time. Macca, thanks so much for your time. Go and have another cup of coffee, and we'll see you a bit later on.
Cheers.
Yeah, no worries. There you go. It is time now for the Crit City Slam. We've got a fantastic team. Alistair Brownlee, Vincent Lewis, Hayden Wild, Tyler Mislachuk, and Jonas Schomburg, who we just spoke to. We've been getting better and better across the course of each of these races. Our best finish was 6th in the scratch race 4 days ago with Sophie Caldwell. We'll see if we can better that. Another scratch race, the Crit City Slam, coming up right now with OJ Borg.
welcome to Zwift Live. We've made it to the final of our Classic Series. I'm OJ Borge here in my pain cave. And I think over the course of this Classic Series, we've got older, we are wiser, and unless you've taken the brave step of cutting your own hair or have a hairdresser who lives at home with you, we're all a little more wild in our barnets. And I think, personally, my hair is going backwards in times into the 80s. I've so far made it to Lost Boys. Goonies is next up. But there's no time for tears or wistful thinking, as we have got a corker of a Crit City closer for you. And I love the Crit City course. We'll get on to that in a second. But before we get to that, and I said we weren't going to reminisce, but we shall, just for a second, because we're going to take a little look back at what happened when the women took on the waterfalls and the rope bridges of Watopia earlier in the week.
Just describe how hard that finale was, because it was very late when you crossed the line in first place.
You often go too early. I mean, you can't sprint all out for 20 seconds. Then you're gonna die 50 meters off the finish.
The finish is just around the corner, 100 meters to go. Harris is on the front. It looks like the New Zealand's going to get it, a blanket finish.
I rode the course like 20 times this week. So I had a close look at the finish.
Tell us the time it is where you are now.
Yeah, call me a Zwiftaholic. It was 3:30 a.m. in Canberra, Australia when I got up this morning. It's now 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm not going back to bed.
You must be really, really happy with the way things went today.
I know I have a good kick on me, but I usually don't have the opportunity to really use it on the road because I'm not really seen as a sprinter. But yeah, and Zwift is pretty cool to give it all for the sprint, and I was happy with the podium.
Team Hino, what can we expect? Amazing, as always, seeing Cecilia Hansen and Vicky Whitelaw going for it. And a great interview at the end there with Matt Stevens. Right, today's race to round off the Classic Series is one in Crit City. And if you haven't raced it before, for me, when they launched it a few months ago, blew my mind. I have in the past very badly raced actual crits IRL. I got lapped on the third lap. A little bit embarrassing. But this is exactly like it. Fast, it's furious, you hit the turns, little climbs. It is all about explosive power and knowing when to go. Timing is essential when it comes to Crit City. And for this final of our Classics races, which of the men will be able to do that? To solo from way out or leave it to a bunch sprint? And remember, you can race these as well. That's what it's all about. Yes, it's great seeing these elite races with the pros and the semi-pros, but it's about you having a go as always. And roughly an hour after the race, we flick the switch and you can get involved. But you need to be quick. It's only there until April the 29th to race the final of the Classics courses. Now, one man who might be taking advantage of that opportunity is rising star Tom Pidcock, although I don't know why we're calling him a rising star, because the man is a polymath when it comes to riding bicycles. He can do absolutely anything on a bike. So he is a risen star. And quite recently, he's been trying his hand at Zwift racing for the very first time, making it either his fifth or his sixth competitive discipline. Mountain bike track, cyclocross, road, TT, and now Zwift. And Hannah Walker caught up with him earlier to find out how he's been finding the transition to Zwift racing.
There's Tom Pidcock, again, one of the most talented riders on the planet at the moment, can excel at all disciplines.
If you look at, Matt, the heart rate that Pidcock is doing already, 183 beats per minute, just shows the intensity already after only 4.5 kilometres of racing.
On Friday night, you did your second ever Zwift Pro-Am in the Richmond Challenge. How was it? How have you found it?
Well, honestly, they're so hard to me. I think I've found the discipline of cycling I'm not very good at. Like the first race, I attacked at the start. I freewheeled so the bunch catch me up quicker, and then I sprinted to get back on, but the bunch just flew past me. So then that was my race over. And then the second one, I was doing all right. Yeah, I lasted 15 minutes in that one and got to the climb. I'm not just going to stop having got dropped after 15 minutes. So for sure, I'm going to try and at least get a good result in one of these races.
When did you first try Zwift?
Good question, really. It became more of a thing this winter, really, especially before the World Champs. I got a cold the week before, so basically I spent the whole week on Zwift. And then I flew to Switzerland and then raced the Worlds and got second. yeah, certainly a tool that makes indoor riding interesting.
Your biggest competitive aims, what are they going forward in cycling?
I want to achieve what I can do in cyclocross. Long term, I just want to become the biggest cyclist in the world.
Your fellow Yorkshireman Alistair Brownlee told us post-race that you thought he found it too hard and you threw in the towel, and sounds like a bit of fighting talk to me. How do you think you compare in a one-on-one Zwift race with Alistair Brownlee, obviously double Olympic champion?
Well, that's a good question, actually. I've certainly got a better kick than him. I think I beat him in a sprint at the finish, but he's done well in these races, so obviously his tactics are pretty good. I think probably the current circumstances he's with.
Are there any other competitive cyclists that you particularly look up to and admire?
It's a bit weird now because, like, obviously Matthew, I race against him now, but like I started cross when he was world champion. Yeah, he certainly is one of the people I look up to, and because he's just so dominant across whatever he does.
And how is Trinity racing team as a whole doing in Zwift? Are they enjoying it? Are they liking these races?
I think they are, to be honest. It's something new, and I think certainly because none of us raced in such a long time, like we're all pretty excited to start, like I was in the first one.
Do you always have team talks before it? Do you have a bit of a chat before of what you're going to do or how you're going to help each other, or is it just go in and?
Yeah, we do a bit, but we don't really know how to help each other. It's more just keeping up with the guys who are fast. So that's our team tactics.
Well, Tom, thanks very much for the chat. Good luck on Saturday. Look forward to on you.
Thank you. Hopefully I'll do a little bit better, that you actually have something to talk about, that I'm not just dropped straight away.
Tom Pidcock there talking to Hannah Walker, and he says, yeah, I hope I don't get dropped. He's not going to get dropped this time. You've seen him race in many of the disciplines. It'll be one of those things where he's not done well for a couple. Now he gets a handle on it, gets the tactics, and probably wins the race. And we'll find out in a few minutes' time when he gets underway on this Crit City course. Now, if you haven't ever raced it and you're not familiar with it, there's one man I know, possibly a superhero, who can tell us about it. That is Matt Stevens.
It's about to get in Crit City. The final classic of the month is heading to the fastest course on Zwift for a fireworks finale. The races will be taking on 10 laps of the downtown Dolphin, going uphill on the cobbles and downhill through the park. In the closing kilometres, the battle for position will be ferocious between the remaining contenders, as the downhill section will launch the riders right into the finishing straight. Long-range attack or last-minute sprints. Only time will tell.
As Matt Stevens says, it's time to get hot in the city, the Crit City. Let's take a look at the teams who have lined up. And what's been great is that as this Classic Series has gone on, we really have swelled in the amount of teams that are racing. And today is no exception. We've got the national teams again, USA national team, Great Britain national team as well, racing for some national pride, and then just a whole host of other great teams that all of them could be in with a chance. Trinity Racing, Tom Pidcock's team, are there. Vitus, as always, my personal favourite team. I've got the fan jersey. Canyon ZCT have lined up. And then if we move through to the ones to watch, look at those names. In the Zwift world, these are big dogs. Ryan Christensen of Canyon DHB, Jesse Seaman of Turbo, James Phillips of Canyon ZCC. We have seen in the past do some amazing things. Sprinting, getting dropped, and then sprinting for the win. The man's a monster. But as we get through all that, and also remember Tom Pidcock, he says he hasn't done well before. Today could be the day. Let's get into the race. And I know it was mentioned last time that people have said this looks a little bit like a broom cupboard. Do I have a Gordon the Gopher? No, of course I don't. I have a Peter, the unicorn. If you're watching this in North America, you don't know what the broom cupboard is, or Gordon the Gopher, then Google is your friend. And sorry, what's that, Peter? You know who's going to win today? Interesting. Who is it? Oh, I see. Well, with that in my ears, let's hand over to your commentators for today's race. That is Hannah Walker, and first, Matt Stevens. Let's get it on!
Well, thank you very much indeed there, OJ. And glad to meet you as well, Peter the Unicorn. He could end up being the official mascot of the Zwift Classics in the future. But that remains to be seen. Cracking race that's in store tonight. 15 laps of this very, very fast, this very technical circuit for the final Zwift Classic. And alongside me, as ever, Hannah Walker. Hannah, I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be a grand finale, and it's been a great set of classics that we've had this time.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to this one. I love crits personally. They were always one of my favourites when I was racing. And yeah, we've had some fantastic racing throughout in both the male and female classics. So yeah, tonight's not going to disappoint, I'm sure.
And what sort of rider? I mean, we saw at the top of the show the kind of teams that are in this event. I mean, a lot of it, we're already on lap number 1 as the field just stringing themselves out. There we go, 28.9 kilometers to go. Already 500 meters of this circuit done. We're going to be rattling around these laps pretty quickly, just over 2 minutes per lap, maybe 2 minutes and 20 seconds. This race should set into a little bit of a rhythm. But just looking at the field that we've got here tonight, Hannah, what sort of rider do you think this circuit is going to suit?
Well, this rider's going to suit a punchy rider, someone who's got very explosive power. Also, a rider who tactically is very aware of what's going on around them. So positioning is key on a circuit like this. Kind of not being on the front, but also not being too far back either. So, you know, keeping yourself within sort of the top 10, top 15 throughout. So making sure you're not wasting any energy on the front is the main thing. And also using your team to be able to help you get up there if you need someone to help you bring you back towards the front, and also going into the final, it's very tricky. You know, you have that right hand hairpin, and then it's only around 200 meters to the finish. It's slightly downhill, so yeah, it's all about positioning and someone who can recover well as well. So you know, maybe the likes of a track rider. There's plenty of them in the Great Britain cycling team here. Ethan Vernon did very, very well in the first classic. So yeah, look to someone who's got great recovery.
Indeed. Well, this is this little dog leg. This is essentially the U-turn. We're just swinging. We're coming downhill actually, and this is the finishing straight now. There you go, 1.8 kilometers down, and we're just rolling through. So that's your look at lap number 1. Everything is still together at the moment. And interestingly, Hannah, I was looking back at a few stats, a couple of races as well as the Zwift Classics. There's racing every single day on Zwift. And I was looking at one of the Belgian Zwift riders who recently won on this circuit, just a few days ago, in fact, and that was Kenneth Merkin, a regular on Zwift. Very, very good rider. You can just see some of the power-ups just the riders are using at the moment. But he averaged around this circuit, just giving you an indication of how hard this circuit is, the sort of power you need to maintain. He averaged for 10 laps 408 watts. So that just shows what it takes to, and this is a harder race as well. The field here is far stronger. So we're going to be looking at between 350, 400 watts average for today, I reckon.
Yeah, it's very high watts, and the intensity is extreme because, you know, we're looking at around probably 45 minutes of racing tonight. So it's being able to sustain that effort for that amount of time, because there's no let up on a course like this. Because, you know, obviously, as I said before, the positioning and it's just so fast that the laps are going by so quickly. You know, as you said, around 2.5 minutes, I think, per lap. As you see, power-ups now being used for the first time. Lots of green ones there, which are the feather power-ups. And also a couple of arrows in there makes you more aerodynamic for 15 seconds.
Indeed. Well, it's worth going through as a look at the early part of the race. It's one of the Team Italy riders just going clear. That's Amasa. Got a slender lead. I think he's going to be reeled back in very, very soon. We can just see 7.1 watts a kilogram for the young Italian on the front at the moment. One of several national teams, as we mentioned at the top of the programme, riding this. We've got the Dutch national squad here. They have the current Zwift national champion amongst their number. We've got a young British team as well, and the USA junior national team. They've got some really, really classy riders amongst their number. As we look at one of the most aggressive regular riders, Morten Vang from the Callas team, one of the new teams that's formed around racing on Zwift, the Callas Esports racing team. He's the 2018 Zwift national champion. So he's one of these riders that knows this circuit, and these laps are coming round very, very fast already. That's another lap down. So we're really looking at around 2 minutes and 20 seconds per lap at the moment as Mikey Mottram of Team Vitus takes the lead.
Yeah, Mikey Mottram, part of the winning team last week with Vitus Pro Cycling. They had a fantastic night of racing. I think it was very, very impressive seeing that the pro teams coming through and challenging the dedicated esports teams. Ben Healy, another one from Trinity Racing, who has really excelled in these classics and should be one to watch tonight, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's worth reflecting back on that race just a little bit as we head into lap number 3. That's Rory Townsend on the front, a very, very classy road rider, riding for Canyon DHB, the Continental team. The British squad. Krul now moves to the front from SEG. SEG Racing, actually, they're an academy team based out of the Netherlands. A very, very good setup, a feeder team to World Tour squads. They've actually renamed, since the lockdown has happened, they've actually renamed the squad SEG E-Racing Academy. And they have a very, very interesting rider amongst the number as we look at the picture of Callum McLeod, should I say, of Canyon DHB, hovering at around 300 watts. That little uphill section on the circuit. Riders using the featherweight power-ups, the aero power-ups. We understand that on this particular circuit, Hannah, riders are getting power-ups around every 5 minutes or so. And as that's a pretty regular use of a power-up, you're not just going to use these power-ups to assist in attacking. It's actually to save a little bit of energy midway through, especially on that little climb.
Yeah, I think also even just to stay in the group, the pace is so high right now, and it's there's never a let up. So it's using the power ups to your advantage, but also not holding on or saving them like you would in some courses. So on here you can see we're on this like little up and down roller coaster like section. As we get a little look of George Mills keeling of the Ribble Well type pro cycling team, another UCI continental team. So they've got the likes of John Archibald and Dan Bigham in their squad.
They have indeed a very, very good team indeed, both Bigham and Archibald. Bronze medalists last year in the first ever mixed team relay at the World Championships. Very, very classy riders indeed, and great to see the Ribble Well tight team racing on Zwift and enjoying it. They're still getting to grips with the nuances of Zwift, the power-ups, the gamification, the way that you apply power. And I thought that was a really good interview that you had earlier on at the top of the show, Hannah, that chat with Tom Pidcock. I did like that one of the last questions you asked him, what was his ambitions in terms of his professional career? And he said, I want to become the biggest bike rider in the world. I mean, that lad knows no bounds, does he? He is such a talent. And let's hope he can really stay in the mix and maybe affect the race towards the back end today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he just knows what he wants. He's got so much determination to be the best, and that shows in his results, and also, in his training. He'll come back into these races, and I do think, race upon race, Zwift, is another discipline. You have to learn what to do and how to race on it, how to use the power-ups. Also knowing the courses makes a huge difference. So I think, the more that Tom races and rides on Zwift, he's only going to get better and better. And I think we even saw that in last week's Zwift Classic in the second round. He was better than the first week. So I think it's only a matter of time before we start seeing Tom Pidcock winning on Zwift.
Yeah, definitely. And if there was a circuit, let's say if there was a circuit designed for him, I think on form, once he got to grips with the way that Zwift is, the way that it feels, the sort of effort that you need, I'm sure he's more than capable of winning races on Zwift in the future. And you just never know about tonight. A lot of power-ups just been used back then. We'll go through the power-ups for you. We're now on midway through lap number 4, just coming to the end of lap number 4. Oh, an interesting rider, should I say, on the front at the moment. That is Krul. He rides for the SEG Racing team, a very, very good time trialist. He was second in the Netherlands under 23 time individual time trial last year. So a very, very good rider, lots of power, happy to sit on the front and drag these along, but no attacks at the moment. I mean, this is the pace here, Hannah, so high. We're coming towards the end of lap number 4 already. These laps are whizzing by very, very high speeds. And there's hardly any opportunity on this course at all to rest. Look at the watts here, hovering between 4.5, 5 watts a kilo. That's very, very hard to maintain.
Yeah, it's very, very hard, and the speed is just relentless. You're seeing the heart rate, as we've seen on all the riders that have been on the screen from their home setups. The heart rate is so high. It's going to stay within around 170 to high 180 beats per minute throughout the whole of the race. Another rider who's very interesting to me, Matt, is Michael.
Just to give you guys a quick update on where our Super League Triathlon athletes are. There's a huge bunch, as you can see, next to me there, and above me, I think that's Hayden Wild, but he's frozen in screen. He's doing pretty well at the moment, as is most of our crew. I'll just have a look over at Zwift Power here. The guys that have had some experience in Zwift in terms of our races are doing really well. Alistair Brownlee, as I said, in his third race, Vincent Lewis in his third race, and Hayden Wild in his second race. They're all in that big front bunch you can see there and have taken turns on the front. Jonas Schomburg is in that front bunch as well. But unfortunately for Tyler Mislachuk, he's been caught out by that very, very, very fast start. People averaging 6 watts a kilo at this point, which is absolutely ridiculous. He's about a minute back in 111th position. He's about a kilometre back on the road, and if Zwift taught us anything, bridging a gap like that is almost impossible. Now he's moved out to a minute 09, so tough going for him. Alistair Brownlee at the front in terms of wattage putting out. He's averaging 400 watts at this point, which is 5.8 watts a kilogram, and he's only got 151 heart rate as opposed to someone like a Jonas Schomburg who's at 191. So watch out for Alistair Brownlee in this one. We'll keep you updated as these laps keep whizzing by.
15th position, trying to hold your place, not exposing yourself to the draft out in front, but sitting in the wheels and trying not to slip back too far. Yeah, completely right, Matt. It's, using that draft to your advantage it is really key. And, the only splits that we've really seen at the front of this peloton so far have only been, around 1 or 2 seconds. And as soon as they got on that downhill section, it's all brought back and it's all back together. But that's just, because the pace is so high in the bunch. Everyone wants to maintain their position as well. No one wants to drop back and have to make a huge effort to move from the back of the peloton back towards the front. So everyone's wanting to maintain that position towards the front. So it's just, a real fight. It's just like in a real life race, Matt, trying to maintain that position. It certainly is, and as we'd expect, everything's still together at the moment. Not too much elevation on this course, but the only climb on this circuit, remember, only 1.9 kilometres in length, is only a couple of 100 metres long. So it's 200 metres long, but a 4% average, does kick up to 6%, so it does hurt. It's a real spiteful little circuit, not many opportunities to rest, and because the downhill after the climb isn't super steep, you can't actually freewheel. You need to keep applying the pressure, keep the power down on the pedals, making this a course that is very, very difficult to recuperate, to recover on. But by virtue of getting these extra power-ups, we could see the power-ups being used more for recuperation than actually attacking. And on the climb again now, seeing all the feather power-ups being used, some aero power-ups as well. Remember, the aero power-up makes you more aerodynamic for 15 seconds, as we see a very aggressive Mikey Mottram move to the front again. The draft power-up, well, that gives you double draft benefit for 30 seconds. Now, the burrito, a very unusual little logo that pops up, makes you undraftable for 10 seconds. So good if you want to attack without anybody grabbing your wheel. And there's the invisibility power up, my favorite power up, which makes you invisible to the other riders for 10 seconds. And then the feather power up, well, that's a very good one if you want to accelerate on a climb or you have a hilltop finish. That makes you 9 kilograms lighter for 15 seconds. So in the finale, if this does come down to a sprint, getting the right power up could prove, Hannah, to be absolutely crucial. Yeah, all these riders will want to have the helmet aero boost to make them more aerodynamic. Of course, I think it will end in a sprint this Crit City race, this classic. So they'll all be looking to have that one. But I think any power up that they get during the race, they'll be wanting to use, to keep themselves in the group, to have as much recovery as possible. Talking of the burrito, though, I've never actually had it, or the invisibility. Quite jealous. That's a shame. You need to get
such a cool one.
You need to get racing a little bit more on Zwift. We'll have to get you on and to make sure that maybe take some screen grabs. That's the wonderful thing. If you're riding on Zwift using the companion app, or you get around your keyboard, you can actually take screen grabs of your screen and then post them on social media. It's especially popular if now we've got all these group rides on Zwift where riders are riding with the pro teams. To get a little screen grab of riding with one of your heroes is pretty cool, actually, as we see another parrot being dropped up at the front.
I was going to say, it's like the 2020 version of a selfie, isn't it?
It certainly is. It certainly is. It's fantastic. I do like to take a little bit of a screen grab when I'm training, especially if my watts go above 220. I feel quite proud of myself. Anyway, one rider who can certainly double or triple 220 watts is Alistair Brownlee. He's really taken to Zwift racing very, very well indeed. He was a real animator a week or so ago in the London Classic, just dropped away towards the back end, but really did shred that field, putting out humongous watts on the climb, and has really adapted exceptionally well. And when you think about the effort of racing on Zwift, we think that it's quite different to an effort in a triathlon, which is a far more linear effort. He's really adapted exceptionally well to the gameplay as well.
Yeah, he has. And I think also, the way he rode in the race, tactically and technically, he was very, very good. I think it's also because he follows cycling as a whole. He's always out with a lot of the Yorkshire bike riders, so understands how cycling and bike racing works as well. Sort of using that the draft of the riders in front as well. So yeah, I think he was exceptionally strong in London. It was just in the latter parts of the race where he tailed off, but he's got a very, very strong team around him tonight. With the Super League Triathlon, he's got Hayden Wild, Vincent Louis, Jonas Schomburg, and Tyner Misselschuk from Canada. So very, very strong team indeed, and they were always present last week in Richmond too.
They were indeed. It's a great team there in the blue shoulders, and then they have the orange and white fade. And we did get a good shot of John Mould, somebody you know very well, I believe, is actually racing in the house. What room is he racing in today? Of course, the former silver medalist in the Commonwealth Games road race and a real exponent of racing on Zwift. How's he doing? Can you hear him?
I can't actually, but I got the door shut. It's like a game show, isn't it? It's like, which room is he racing in tonight? But he's in the kitchen. So, yeah, windows open, fans blaring, and yeah, I'm sure he's got his AirPods in with music blasting too to drown out the pain.
Good stuff. With some great shots here of this Crit City Slam circuit. This is called the Downtown Dolphin. Well, this is the way we ride it. You can actually ride it in the other direction as well, but it is a special course. It's an event-only course, but as OJ said at the top of the program, an hour or so after this race has finished, you can actually race on this circuit as well. So get onto the Zwift companion app or head to zwift.com/events. And for the next 4 days or so, you can actually race on this circuit. Just pick an event that suits your abilities and your standard, and you can have a go of racing like these elite riders. As we look at Andrzej Pidcock of the Polish team there, very, very good rider indeed. And although we've got a big bunch here together, Hannah, we've started to lap a few riders. I think the relentless nature of this course, the fact there's not much opportunity for recovery, is meaning that this field is slowly but surely whittling itself down.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think there's around 38 riders left in this front group. So although it looks quite a large group, there's definitely riders starting to just lose contact, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds off the back. But, on a course like this, it's really hard to get back on. You have to almost make a huge sprint to make it back into the group. And as you said before, because this is an event-only circuit and world, a lot of these riders actually won't have ever ridden on here before. So I know, as you mentioned before, John Mould, he raced on it last night just to familiarise himself with it again. So those riders who've ridden it before do have the upper hand of where to make the effort, where they can recover, and also where to move up as well.
Yeah, definitely. We are seeing this field slowly but surely whittle down there.
If you can believe it, we're already halfway through the last of the Zwift Classics here at the Crit City Clam. I keep saying clam. The Crit City Slam. Let's get an update on our riders again. Alistair Brownlee still on the front. We heard the commentators there talk, Matt and Hannah, just about how strong he has been. He continues to be strong, continues to be at the front of this race, along with Vincent Louis. So the Olympic champion and the world champion are right there and pushing out about 400 watts on average to stay on the front, as we are now in lap 8 of 15 on this one. Of course, this is a scratch race, so it all just comes down to what happens in the last couple of 100 metres and how many people are left in that bunch. And as we just heard, it is being whittled down pretty severely by the pace at the front. At the back end of our Super League team, Tyler Misselschuk is now about 2.5 minutes back. So he's certainly finding the going tough. He's about 1.4 kilometres back, so he'll be in danger of getting lapped soon enough. Jonas Schomburg's dropped off the back as well. He's 45 seconds back, about 700 metres back from our leaders. He's still pushing over 5 watts a kilogram, though, such is the pace. And Vincent Louis, Hayden Wild, Alistair Brownlee are all still in that front pack. So as the pace continues to heat up, we hope our boys can stay there and whittle that pack down as much as humanly possible to give themselves a good chance of getting in there with a podium at the end. But we'll keep you updated a couple more times throughout the course of this race. And, of course, we'll be on Instagram Live at the end to talk to our racers, or to do our best to, with the limitations of technology and wrap this whole thing up. So head on over to Instagram after this is finished to hear from some of our athletes. But right now, we're getting to the business end of this race, about 15 minutes to go.
You need to look that up on Google. It's a very, very special jersey indeed. But they have Sam Branland, and he's going to really like this finish. Brownlee just moves off the front, trying to split things up a little bit. Great move by the double Olympic champion.
Well, look at that, just putting the power down on that downhill after the little climb, and already got 1 second gap. He's sort of being chased down by Merkin, the rider that you were mentioning before from Belgium. Brownlee just swept up, but that's very good to see him in the mix and making those moves. It is quite interesting. If someone makes a move there on the last half a lap, can they, go all full gas, maintain that power, and hold on to the finish?
Exactly. I think that's a really, really good point. On a circuit like this with 6 laps to go now, so we're well over half distance. These laps, as we've been commentating and talking, are absolutely a whizzing past. But the way Brownlee moved off the front and didn't spend too much time off the front, I think he's trying things out. I think because we know that he doesn't possess real punch and a real sprint just by the very nature of the sport that he participates in, a far more linear sort of effort. He has the attributes to go long, so I guess he's just trying to feel what it's like riding, wants to feel what it's like just going over the crest of that climb and feeling what it's like on the descent, putting power through the pedals. So I think he's sniffing out potentially the opportunity to go for a long one, which is very shrewd, very intelligent.
Yeah, the speed as well is at 48 kilometers per hour right now as well. So for him to be able to make a bit of a move off the front as well, it's just sort of telling us what he might want to do in the coming laps. But yeah, also I know a lot of riders, they like to make a bit of an effort during the race just to test the legs, kind of open up the lungs a little bit, and then they'll sit back in the peloton, recover, just watch what's going on, follow any moves, keep themselves almost anonymous, and then sort of launch another attack later towards the latter end of the race.
Indeed. Well, there's Rory Townsend just using an aero power up over the top of the climb from Canyon DHB. Again, a very, very classy rider. Lots of big wins on the domestic circuit in the United Kingdom as a few more riders are being lapped. Bridges now from Great Britain closes the lap. Massa there is from Italy as well. A few little tentative moves going here. And as a result, the bunch really stringing out on this downhill section here. Just watch the way the speed picks up here. 56 kilometers an hour. Townsend still on the front as another lap rider is mocked up. It won't be very long before they just head round that final U-bend and up through the finish, and another lap will be ticked down. The legs really must be hurting because all of these riders in the top 10 on the right-hand side there, if you look at their watts per kilogram, they're all holding between 4.5 and 5.5 watts a kilo. That is going to hurt.
Yeah, this is really intense. Now you see Zach Bridges, the 19-year-old Welsh rider who is on the Great Britain Senior Academy, coming to the front, a track rider, so he'll suit this style of racing. Also up there, Mikey Mottram once again, and John Mould as well. Also another good track rider, so we'll be used to this, real high intensity of racing as we see a few more draft power-ups being used now.
Yeah, a lot of riders just making sure they keep themselves at or near the head of affairs. One of the riders who's been very active, Ben Healy. I haven't seen Tom Pidcock too much at the moment, but I've seen a couple of Trinity jerseys just midway through the bunch. That's the rather fanciful diagonal black and white jersey. And a couple of the draft power-ups being used as we head towards the back part of the circuit. John Archibald being picked up there by Ribble Weltite. Again, he's a very, very good all-round rider. Can time trial very well. Was second in the time trial championships of Great Britain, and then backed that up, Hannah, didn't he? By third in the road race as well. Very, very impressive rider.
Yeah, it was very, very impressive. It just showed his strength, and also, he's not just a time trialist, he can road race as well, and he's very, very good on the track. So Archibald, the brother of Katie Archibald, the Olympic champion, so yeah, very, very good genes in that family. And actually got a note before the race started to say hi to my mum Louise. So hi Louise.
Great stuff. Well, I tell you what, we're just looking at the head of affairs there. That's Drew Christensen. He's running for the NTT Continental Cycling Team and, of course, won the Zwift Academy in 2019 and won himself a contract with the under-23 NTT squad. He's got two teammates with him today, Leonardo Macchiori of Italy and another Italian, Riccardo Bobo. So great to see Drew in the mix there. And one rider, well, it's actually Drew Christensen who's gone clear at the moment, 6 seconds gap. Well, Townsend, should I say. So Townsend has gone clear at the moment, 450 watts, just underneath, just under 6 watts a kilo. This is a big effort, but there's still 4 laps to go. But maybe a little bit of a move just to test the ground, maybe even to try and be the catalyst or provide the catalyst for a breakaway. But I tell you what, they're not giving him too much space at all. He is back and in the fold of the peloton.
Yeah, well, we still have Christian out front, 7 seconds. It's Seaman now who's on the front of that bunch, and then Merkin of the Belgian Zwift riders coming to the front. World champion in the triathlon, Vincent Louis from France coming up as well, and also Ollie Jones from Canyon ZCC. So we've not seen much of any of those riders. They've kept themselves very anonymous throughout tonight's race. What have they got up their sleeves? Stevie Young is a very good sprinter on that squad. So I think, in my opinion, they'll be trying to sprint for him tonight.
I'd imagine there'll be indeed. Sorry to cut across there, Hannah. No, indeed, it's just interested by that move from Christensen. Opened up a gap very quickly indeed. We should get the stats on the right-hand side in just a minute, just to see what has happened there. But Townsend, a couple of other riders there, a couple of the KISS Racing team. There are a few teams here that know Zwift very well indeed, that are just backing things off a little bit, maybe letting some of the other teams head to the front, conserving their energy, which on a course like this, because of the intensity, because of the relentless nature of the course, that's a pretty good tactic to use, especially if you know the course and you've raced on it before.
Yeah, knowing the course, it gives you such an advantage. It's like, in real life racing, you'll always do a recce of a crit, or if you're doing a time trial, you'll always do a recce, and make sure you know the turns and the course like the back of your hand, sort of where it gets hard, where you need to make your effort. Sort of also knowing on this course, the climb doesn't look like much, but after several laps, it certainly starts to take its toll on the legs. As you see, Mikey Mottram now of Vitus Pro Cycling up towards the front. He's got a slight gap again on at the top of this climb going down into the descent. Damien Clayton at the front as well, as Mikey Mottram starts to get swept in by the peloton. So it means that it's so hard to stay away or even get 1 or 2 seconds gap.
Indeed. Well, Brownlee again moves to the front, mixing it very well. He's got that sort of engine that can stay, never slips back too far. He can certainly deliver the power to maintain a slot at the front, as Mikey Mottram drops right back to the back of that group after that little move on the front.
You heard the commentary, Alistair Brownlee still mixing it up at the front, but it's a very big group. A good shot there from above, with about 80 odd riders in that group with only a few laps left to go. So it really is anyone's race. Vincent Lewis, as well as there. Hayden Wild is still there. Jonas Schomburg is a couple of minutes back. And there is Hayden, as the sun is just starting to come up in New Zealand, working very hard. And he is right there in that front group, pushing about 5.5 watts a kilo. As he said, that's what he needed to do if he was going to stay with it all. And he is doing exactly that, pushing an average about 350 watts. Unfortunately for Canadian Super League fans, and all of us actually, for Super League, Tyler Mislechuk has had to pull out of this race. He's had some technical issues. He missed the start, and I think he might have had some tech issues from the very beginning, which has caused him some problems. So he pulled out about a lap ago, and he was already 8 minutes back there, so he was having some issues. Unfortunately, Jonas Schomburg's a couple of minutes back, but Alistair Brownlee, Hayden Wild, and Vincent Lewis are all in this front group. So there is absolutely everything to play for. We'll have one more update before the finish of this race, and of course we'll head to Instagram Live afterwards to get all the wash-up. So stay tuned.
Of power-ups now being used, feather power-ups for this climb. That's the one that you want. A lot of draft power-ups as we look at Tom Pidcock, still clearly in the mix, moving to the front. This is good to see. The multiple world champion excels across all disciplines, and towards the back end of this Zwift Classic, the final Zwift Classic of the series, the silver medalist in this year's Elite Cyclocross World Championships is still in the mix, cruising down this downhill section. Then they'll soon hit the U-bend and back through the finish. But Hannah, great to see Tom Pidcock in the mix, and crucially, this guy has got a kick as well, a former, amongst all the other titles he holds, British Criterium champion as well.
Yeah, he's got a great punchy kick on him. Fantastic to see, only in the third Zwift Classics now. It is the final one, but seeing him go from strength to strength, he's learned from each round, and great to see him still in the mix. Obviously, he said in the first round in London, he attacked, didn't realise, once he freewheeled, the group swept him up and he was out the back before he knew it. So he's learned from his mistakes from the previous 2 rounds, and, he's playing dividends right now. He's up in the front, and as you said, Matt, he's got a great kick on him. Won't be surprised if we see him, taking the victory tonight. I know OJ said at the top of the show, could be one to watch tonight.
Indeed, definitely one to watch. Well, he's at the head of affairs, just staying out of trouble. Clearly has adapted very, very well. This is in stark contrast to his earlier performances. Just couldn't quite get it right, but tonight he is looking very, very good. There's 1 3/4 laps to go. You can just see everybody jostling for position. Merkin, the Belgian, who's won recently on this circuit, always at the head of affairs. Rory Townsend, one of the most aggressive riders in this race today, always at the front. Sniffing out the action. Pidcock still midway through the centre here. The very, very strong Polish rider Pozepsko is also there as well, as Clayton now takes to the front for a Ribble well tight.
Yeah, Clayton, another very, very strong rider. He's won the UCI race, GP Marbier's last year. So, great talent from the Ribble well tight team. Also, Vincent Louis comes towards the front now, the triathlon world champion from France, the 30-year-old. Been very, very present in all the Zwift Classics, actually, so great to see him up towards the front. I'm not sure whether he'll be racing and working for Alistair Brownlee, though, as we have been seeing him up the front so much, keeping his teammate protected.
Well, there's certainly plenty of the All-Stars team in the mix still, and there's the shot of Tom Pidcock. Things starting to thin out. They've just come over the crest of that climb. There's Clayton for Ribble. Couple of Canyon ZCC riders. Watch out for Lionel Vujasan. He's not touched the front at all. He's conserved his energy, and he is there in the top 10, just moving, floating up and down. Krull is there as well for SEG Racing. Very, very good time trialist, as we mentioned before. There is the picture-in-picture of the British rider Damien Clayton. Headband on.
Last update quickly, we've got about a lap to go, and Alistair Brownlee, Hayden Wild and Vincent Lewis are all positioning themselves at the front, so make sure you keep an eye out for their names. All 3 are working very, very hard. Hayden Wild looking very composed above me. Jonas Schomburg is well back 2.5 minutes, and Tyler Mizinchuk pulled out, but we'll head back to our commentators. The last lap of the Crit City Slam coming up.
It does look as if it's going to be a bunch sprint, but look at the riders struggling to hold on to the peloton as the pace gets more ferocious.
Yeah, riders want to try and start to move up now, get into the position that they want to be. Optimum would be, in the top 10. We've seen Tom Pidcock up towards the front now. He has been yo-yoing from around 60th back up towards the front. So, he's learning that how to draft in this peloton as well. Mikey Mottram, as ever, up towards the front as well. And Rory Townsend of the Canyon DHB team also up towards the front. So this is going to be a mass sprint finish.
Well, Merkin goes again to the front. He's overtaken by Clayton again from Ribble. Krull is there as well. Great ride from the rider from SEG. Louis now moves to the front as well. Wetterall is there for the Swedish Zwift races. Lots of teams still in the mix, still in with a shout. Sam Brandlund moves up. Remember, 4th last week in Richmond and one of the most regular winners on Zwift. Look out for him in that white jersey. Mould now moves to the front as well. And Vujasan also there. And a big attack here by Wetterall. Consummate TT rider, but somebody goes straight over the top. But this is the final drag of this race, and they go under the Flamme Rouge hand at 1 kilometre to go.
Well, if you just saw the numbers there from Wetterall, over 600 watts now as we see 1 kilometre to go, as we start to see a move off the front, and it is Krull and Gavin Dempster, the Scottish rider from Draft, off the front, 11.9 watts per kilo. They've got a 1 second gap to Bigham. Mottram also in there, but it's Gavin Dempster going solo now. He has 2 seconds lead over Wetterall now. Can this be going to victory for the Scottish rider, Matt?
Well, the Scottish rider is still putting out over 10 watts a kilogram. He's been in the top 10 a couple of times recently. This will be an amazing win for Team Draft, but can he hold on? This lap is coming down. The gap is coming down, shall I say. And there he is, picture-in-picture, 600 watts. Round that bend for the final time. It looks like the rider from Team Draft is going to take a monumental victory. Or has he been swept up? Oh, he's been swept up in sight of the line. It looks as if it was McGlinchey who eventually took the win. Cruel win there by McGlinchey. It looked as if Dempster was going to take it. But in the last dying moments of the Crit City Slam, it looked as if McGlinchey stole it in the last few meters. We'll get, of course, confirmation, but what an amazing race that was.
Wow, what a finish that was. It looked like Dempster was going to seal that one and wrap it up at almost solo victory, but just got caught on the line. It was very, very close. As we see the results now, it's the Irish rider of Vitus Pro Cycling, Chris McGlinchey, who gets the victory tonight. So that's back-to-back victories for Vitus Pro Cycling. Ollie Jones up there and Brad Gavarius, 2 of Turbo.
What a wonderful win there by McGlinchey. Great riding by the rider from Vitus. Ollie Jones, Canyon ZCC, as you said, in second position. These riders were a complete blanket finish. Brad Gavaris there from South African Team Turbo. Good result. Another consistent performance from Sam Brandlin from the Swedish Zwift riders in fourth position. And just look at the stats. Look at the average watts just down the right-hand side. 5.2 watts a kilogram won the day, but that was a very, very smart ride. And the rest of the top 10 from the indoor specialists, we have Larson, then we have Levy of Kiss Racing, the ever-present Lionel Viassan of Canyon ZCC, then we have Rory Townsend, and then the brave rider from Scotland and Team Draft, Gavin Dempster. I nearly called him the victor. It wasn't to be, but he managed to scrape just inside the top 10. And then we have Ryan Christensen from Canyon DHB rounding out the top 10. Well, Hannah, we knew that was going to be exciting. But what an absolutely rip-roaring finale it was. I mean, hats off to Gavin Dempster, but what can you say? Perfect timing by McGlinchey to take the win for Vitus.
Yeah, that was perfect, wasn't it? And it was so close, just 0.2 of a second, just less than to Ollie Jones. So really, timing and positioning was key, as we've said throughout this whole series, knowing where to be on the course. And they certainly got a lot of time to look at where they need to be on tonight's course, but fantastic riding from Gavin Dempster there from Draft. Really heroic effort and to still get in the top 10, but only 0.79 of a second from taking tonight's victory.
I think it just shows how understanding how you put the power through the bike, understanding the use of power-ups, and as we discussed at length beforehand, understanding at what point to accelerate, especially on these technical circuits. The more you race them, the more you get used to it. But we say fortune favours the brave. It wasn't to be that way today from Dempster, but I tell you what, it made for a super race. Very exciting, and that was the most notable attack of the night. As we look at this is with a couple of laps to go, still 9.4 k's to go here. And this is one of the points where Brownlee was on the front. And again, Brownlee rode a very aggressive race. He's just getting better at this Zwift racing discipline, isn't he?
Yeah, he certainly is. And I think that goes for everyone, as we saw Pidcock as well. The more you race on Zwift, the more you get used to it, the more you learn, knowing the riders as well who are around you, the ones to watch, starting to know the courses as well. Get another look here when Townsend was up towards the front with Zach Bridges of the Great Britain cycling team. So this, was another notable effort, but there wasn't, many attacks or big moves going off the front. The pace was just so high, and there was so much power, and that tells in the average power at the end of the race.
Well, here we go. This was another action replay. You can just see the field snaking around this wonderful circuit. This was just coming into the final lap, in fact. Still all together. We discussed Tom Pidcock. Just finished outside the top 10 did Pidcock. That was actually with one lap to go, should I say. The lap counter just a little bit late on that occasion. But we talked about Tom Pidcock trying to animate this race. He's learning fast, isn't he? Great to see him in at the kill towards the back end there.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant, and he's just going from strength to strength, learning as ever, and really embracing this platform now. As he said, he used it just before the UCI Cyclocross World Championships, where he took a silver medal. And yeah, if you see now tonight, he's just outside the top 20 in 23rd place. If you compare that to where he was in the first round of the Classics in London.
There is the leaderboard. What a sprint finish at the end. What a brave attack there from Gavin Dempster. Unfortunately, to get swallowed up and finishing 9th overall. An update on where our Super League Triathlon team finished. There was a big bunch sprint there we could see at the replay at the end. And the wattage per kilogram was absolutely outrageous, as we've come to expect in these Zwift races. Let's have a look at how we finished up. So Tyler Mislechuk, as we said, if you're just joining us here, had to pull out mid-race, unfortunately for him. Jonas Schomburg finished back in 94th position. And 3 of our athletes, as I keep updating you, were all part of that sprint finish and all took turns at the front, especially Vincent Lewis and Alistair Brownlee, who has been earning some plaudits from the British commentary team about how well he's been doing, but he certainly has been learning incredibly well. So in the end, though, it was Vincent Lewis who finished at the top of our athletes in 25th position. He was 1.547 seconds back, averaged 390 watts, which is 5.7 watts a kilogram, which is disgusting. His heart rate when he crossed the line, 198 beats a minute, which is absolute death if it was happening to me. Alistair Brownlee was only 8 positions back, 2.044 seconds. He finished 33rd, and Hayden Wild 59th. He was 4.69 seconds back. So as we've seen across the course of these Zwift races, having a sprint finish like that and having to put out high wattage over the course of 20 or 30 seconds, it's not a triathlete's forte. Of course, these cyclists are purely, and we heard there, they've got national crit champions and track cyclists and all sorts who do not have to swim or run. But to watch the Super League triathlete team improve week on week, race on race, learn how to race on Zwift, and to mix it with the very best esports races and some of the best cyclists in the world has been truly impressive to watch. We will have plenty more coming up in terms of esports. Hopefully, we'll be announcing some things over the coming weeks and different innovations for Super League as we wait to get back out there into the real world and race once again. But we hope you've enjoyed the last 5 races of the Zwift Classics, and stay tuned to all of our social media feeds for more updates as they come to hand, and we'll keep trying to keep the racing coming to you. I'm going to head over to Instagram right now and do an Instagram live with some of our athletes. I know Vincent Lewis is standing by and Hayden Wild standing by waiting for me, which makes me feel very special. So I'm going to jump on over to the Super League Triathlon Instagram live. We'll hear from those guys right now. So make sure you click over to hear how tough that actually was. Cheers.